Welcome to the StarShip Writers Room, a podcast that gives you an up-close look at the creation of the StarShip universe. We talk new characters, hash out plot points, and imagine possibilities that are truly out of this world, and which you might see featured in the StarShip NFT game, a play-to-earn cryptocurrency game set in outer space. I'm Melanie, the StarShip lore champion, joined by my co-host and fellow StarShip lore creator, Spazzitron of CryptoPhoenix.org. We're also joined today by StarShip's CEO, Matt Albright, who should be joining us, but he's not here right now, and the latest member to join the writer's room, Shooty. Shooty is a passionate, lifelong advocate of the art of video game production, especially in the realms of fantasy and world creation. From the time he learned to walk, he decided instead to sit in front of gaming screens. His creative expression is massively influenced by Jim Henson, Square Enix games, and a healthy dose of Tolkien. When Shooty joined the writer's room, he was instantly drawn to the grassland planet type and has already contributed some amazing and super creative ideas towards its development, which we will get into in this episode. So welcome, everyone. It's so good to be here today with you guys.
Hello, hello.
Hey, good morning.
So Shooty, we wanted to start with just asking you, what is one thing that inspired you this week, especially something that might have sparked some ideas for the StarShip lore?
Yeah, that's a big one. So that kind of gets on into it. Tron, I as I'm coming up with lore ideas and story, actual like campaign character ideas, I don't mean any of this to be like, this is what we need to do. I'm just getting to hear some of what you're writing and what you've been working on. And so when I'm talking about ideas that I have, I don't mean it in any way to be like, oh, by the way, the last 4 weeks you've spent, staying up until 2 a.m. writing on this. I don't think we should do that because at the point I'm coming into the team, I don't even know what you're writing in its fullness quite yet. So that being said, something that I thought about this week, as I shared in our Telegram, in our personal Telegram, had to do with why Lord Albright is called Lord Albright, kind of where that comes from. Is that something we have a moment to get into a little bit?
Yeah,
go for it. All input is good input.
Okay, thank you. So I work as a massage therapist. I have for over 10 years now, and one of the incredible things that I get to understand is sort of the fluidity, sort of the psychic fluidity of what happens in a massage setting. I tend to be really resistant to labels, so saying I'm an empath or I'm psychic or these kind of things. And that's not me saying it without saying it. Like I don't like to take on these kind of labels, and I don't like to put them on other people. But so I met this client. I'm in a place right now where I've just moved to this new area. I'm finally starting back up with my massage business, and I meet this new client. And so he kind of shy, kind of just, sort of like he's open, he's friendly, but kind of taking his time warming up. And we had a 105-minute session. So during the intake, find out he gets massages every week. And people that get more massage or work with their body more often tend to be a little more open, just friendly, details kind of flow. They're not particularly shy about everything. It's just meeting someone for the first time. For some people, we tend not to give the whole hand away, especially for people that are a little bit more fluid as far as psychic or mental energies go. And so we're working after a while, and we start warming up to each other, just talking about this and that, history of who we are a little bit. And for whatever reason, I'm working on his head. He's face up, and he starts talking about, almost out of nowhere, his cat, that he had a cat that he remembers holding, until the moment it had an injection and, passed away, and holding it in his arms during that time. And he said, I don't really know why I mentioned that. And I said, how long ago did that happen? He said, oh, this is almost 20 years ago. I really don't know where that came from. And I told him something that happened in my life very recently. My cat of 15 years had this very similar thing. So I don't mean to bring that up to be like, oh, wow. But it was a very powerful moment for both of us, because then I told him, I said, you're probably picking that up from me. This is what happened. And these kind of experiences happen often, not just with me, but in massage in general, when people start opening up. And it happens in my yoga classes too. I teach yoga. One of the styles I teach, yin yoga, is very meditative, like meditative stretching. And I don't plan all the things I want to say during the class, but sometimes during the class, I'll just spontaneously decide to say something. And after class, it's very common for somebody to say, that thing you said, it really resonated with me. And I usually, in my mind, or I tell them, I'm like, wow, I just kind of picked that out of thin air. That must have been for you. That must have been for you. That kind of, so I didn't mean to kind of get off on a long tangent, but the point of that is, I think a lot of us are a little bit more fluid in how we pick up ideas than we realize, things that we're understanding about the people around us, a little bit more coming from a real place than I think some of us realize. So I was thinking, in part of what we're the use of kyanite. Why kyanite? What is it about kyanite? I just think it's so special that instead of it just being, okay, we have this arbitrary, quote gold or quote Bitcoin, like this thing that we're mining in this world. And then also we have a campaign and all this cool story around it. I'm like, no, the kyanite has to be the point. It has to be the draw of, why is this place special? Why is this story taking place here? And so part of my backstory idea is that kyanite, when Faye or Captain Albright or whoever, whatever fleet, whatever group went over on this expedition to find a place, a suitable resource or a Goldilocks planet or something for whatever Earth needed them to do, they went out, found this kyanite, and realized very quickly that it was enhancing them somehow, right? That's something that people love. I have loved in stories, in role-playing games, or in animated stuff, in movies, when suddenly, like Shazam, when suddenly you have power and you didn't before. And it's very obvious, like that moment of discovering, like, oh my God, I can do this thing. Asla probably waiting his whole life to be able to lift some of the steel pipes that he'd had to, work with teams to move around. And so the idea that suddenly, what if Albright's power? Oh, and to finish kind of that, like they spent all these resources, all this time gathering this kyanite and preparing it and mining it and bringing enough back to Earth to make a difference, but expending all their time, all their resources in finding somewhere else. And so they come back, the Galactic Council or the Earth, or the president, or however modern we make this return and what timeline they're coming back to Earth. They come back and they have this kyanite, but it turns out it's useless. In our galaxy, in our universe, it doesn't have the charge, it doesn't have the thing. So they, like all the people who came back, they have this memory, they have this distinct truth of, no, this, I was able to lift this stuff. I was able to run this fast. However creative we want to get about it. But what if they came back and the kyanite's useless and the council or the federation or whatever is not just disappointed, but like, you specifically had a mission. You didn't do that mission. You came back, you failed. We're kind of doomed now and it's your fault. And so, maybe Faye or somebody, they take a prototype starship, or, the fleet that had gone, like they were going to be imprisoned, or, maybe dark forces behind the council were going to like silence them, and for power reasons. That's very drawing, right? That's always drawing, like, to the little guy, to the underdog, like there are people behind the scenes being bad. So it draws you into a story a little. And so what if, Faye and Albright and the people the characters we love, got on this prototype ship, stole it, essentially, and went back to the galaxy to prove their point, to bring back, to expose the truth and whatever. And then 1 year after that, this is when we, find them. So what if Lord Albright's power is something like a psychic attraction, that he just seems to find the people he needs. When he finds a problem, very soon after that, the people, the cultures, the races, or, maybe the object, but I'm thinking more people to people, or, sentient consciousness to sentient consciousness. Like he just finds it. It becomes attracted to him. Or even when he's in desperate need, that person that is right for the job somehow just gravitates, and I mentioned in the writing telegram, sort of like a Felix Felicis, that's sort of like just a sort of a draw. Like, I don't know why I'm doing these things, but I kind of accidentally, and oh my God, here's Lord Albright. So it makes sense, like why he is able to take on the mantle of Lord, that, and so not to, talk for 10 minutes as I just did, but that's my inspiration for this week.
Wow. I love it. And also, just speaking of like the synchronicities, and I feel like you just did it again, because I really feel like that's how my experience has been recently, with the like creating the Starship lore. I was just thinking the other day, like, I feel like we need to get another writer. And the same exact, like in this almost the same thought, I was like, I also feel like, I'm because I've been doing a lot of the creature creation, and I was like, I also kind of am itching to get into writing the story. And that same exact day, I met with you, Shooty, and I was just blown away by everything you've already done, and by your like contagious enthusiasm. And the same day, Spazzitron sent a story that, and it's so funny, the tentativeness with which we, as we learn how to collaborate with each other. When you sent that story, Spazzitron, I was like, oh, I would love to contribute, like, to creating the story together and write the story. And then I was like, is this okay? And so, and of course you were, so open for that. So it's just like, as soon as kind of what you were saying about Lord Albright, as soon as I had these needs arise, like it was like the universe met them, so that, just kind of channeling what people need to hear, or what resonates for people at the time. That definitely feels like you're doing it right now.
That's really cool. Yeah, I was really happy to hear that when when I sent you the sort of cobbled together beginnings of the of Arc 1, and I'm like, I have never written anything like this. Is substantially longer than anything that I'm accustomed to writing, and it kind of like started to come apart, and you're like, oh, longer, like novellas are sort of my thing. I'm like, that is excellent. That's precisely what I need here.
Yes, we're like, perfect. I feel like there is that sort of magic that's happening, like with everything is just coming together where, we all really complement each other in terms of like, what we're able to contribute and everything. And speaking of that, Shooty, would you like to tell us a bit more about your background, which is very varied, and how it has already inspired your contributions to the Grassland planet, especially?
Oh, yes, I would really love to. I have my eyes firmly on the clock, because there's only the three of us in here right now, but I don't want to monopolize anything.
It's all you. This is your episode. Monopolize it.
This is your introductory episode. You are the captain of this starship.
Well, I really appreciate that. And please feel free to interrupt me if you've got something that's like, oh my God, I have to say this right now. So please feel free. So my background, most of my life, I began as a musician, picked up a clarinet, loved it, then liked the bass clarinet because it was more woodsy and rich, then got into high school and saw the drum line and I was like, oh my God, percussion. So for high school, I played percussion, picked at piano, sort of was coming awake, understanding I really love composing music. But then I also fell in love with singing. And that was the big one. Went to the All-State Honors Choir. I actually composed a piece of choral music and won, first in state for Illinois in that year for high school. And it just like started unfolding. So I joined the Army to pay for a prohibitively expensive private Lutheran college in Minnesota to go and get my degree. And I sang while I was in the Army. I was actually a weapons specialist, cavalry scout for any of you ground scouts out there. I was a 19 Delta, so weapons specialty and reconnaissance and all of that. But what I really wanted to do was sing, like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, right? But Father, I don't want to marry. So fast forward a few years later, I go to this college, I have this degree, I'm working on music theory and composition and studying as a classically trained singer and having this whole idea about where I want my life to go. But then my mid-20s happened, I think for a lot of people, maybe the mid-20s is where you're really like grappling with your existential place in the world and realizing maybe you don't have as much to offer quite yet. Like I haven't nurtured these talents that are going to make me great. And so I was really struggling under the weight of what do I really have to offer? Is it any good? Does anybody care? Does anybody want any of this? And college kind of unfortunately fell apart a little bit because I was struggling with some things and very bad with meeting admin deadlines for money. So my student loans, ran out and it was like, no, you don't have another opportunity to apply. There's been, a year of opportunity for that. And so everything ended with a fizzle as far as my college experience. And I was left with this, who was watching out for me? If I was so important, if everybody, all these years in high school, and I mean this looking back, like I don't really feel this way anymore, but if all of this people were saying, you're so great, you've got so much talent, like all of this, then where were they when my life was falling apart, when I was, to be a little personal, struggling a little bit with addiction or addictive habits, things that just weren't good for me that I was spending too much time doing is kind of how I want to think about it. And like, where were those, my voice teacher, my choir director, love them to death, shout out to them, by the way. But in that moment, this is what I'm going through. And then I found massage and yoga, became a massage therapist, and eventually through that, a yoga teacher. And I started understanding basic human truths. When you work on people one at a time, my experience as a classical singer is studying poetry, because what do you do except study the poems that people have written? When you sing, you're singing poems. And these are poems that have lasted. So these aren't just like poems that somebody wrote last week and they're crap. It's like, this is the stuff that human beings have chosen to share, that have chosen to pass from person to person and have survived and been renewed through generations of singers and musicians as valid. And so you get to study, especially the further back you go, the stuff, the librettos that Mozart and the texts that Bach, of course, the Bible, that a lot of early composers wrote about. These are the nuggets, the good stuff about what it really means to be human. And so that strength was already in place when I became a massage therapist. But what it really helped me do, I understood as I'm working on bodies one after the other, now thousands of different people I've worked with, you realize that we are all far more alike then we are different. And that to me, and that relating to story, relating to why I'm talking about any of this, has to do with validation. So understanding that, like, what you have to offer, there's so much that we're alike about, but the things that make us different, like the strengths that really set us apart from each other in a good way, they don't have to be terrifying. And so my very eclectic, I'm a little bit good at this, I'm a lot good at this, wait till you see me do this, and these are some areas where, like, oh man, somebody else take the wheel. I don't need to be good at everything. It having the understanding through yoga, when you practice and come face to face with yourself and the way that you communicate with yourself, you start hearing, I'm not good enough, or I need to be better. And then eventually you hear it enough while you're practicing and you go, wait, I am good enough because I'm here. I'm doing it. I'm good enough for today, and for whatever work needs to be done to make tomorrow go well, and that tying into artistic creation. That's the big hook, right? When we're on social media, staring into the void of the internet and seeing all these examples of who we're not yet, Instagram models and people who are like, I'm so disciplined, I work out 7 hours a day and I changed my whole life. And it's like, well, that's not me. I struggle. And then for whatever reason, an opportunity comes along. I'm passionate about something. I decide for me, I'm at a place in my life where the confidence I have from being a singer, and now the healing I've done for feeling that my voice matters, that what I have to contribute is important, that now I'm in a place where I'm looking in the chat rooms for other metaverses, other worlds that are being built. And they're like, oh, you should just submit some ideas, submit some drawings. It's fun. It's in Discord. It's like no pressure, whatever. And so, I draw up a rocket pack for this other Discord metaverse that's not even coming out till next year kind of thing. And just for fun. And then I was like, wait, what if on the magma planet, there's this? And then I start drawing, and then there's my magma ant. And I'm like, you know what the heck do we have to lose? I'm imagining behind the scenes, Deploy StarShip already has this team of writers. This like 7 people are already involved in the production of this and the game design. And it's this, $100 million company already that's behind this. What is my voice matter? What is it? Whatever. But I don't have that block anymore. I don't feel like, why would anybody look at this? Why would anybody care? And that was, so I'm in the Telegram, and then I see Matt Albright's in there. I'm like, oh, I've noticed him in the Telegram here and there. It's not uncommon for a lot of the, with the title CEO after it to still be popping around Telegram chats for different chat rooms. And so I was just like, why the heck not? Matt, here's this little half-finished drawing of an ant. I thought this might be cool. Here's a couple details about it. And then suddenly, bam, he's like, puts me into the writer's room and I meet you. And I meet you and Tron, and here we are. And so I guess that's that's a little bit of my backstory, and sort of kind of encompasses what I have to offer, a part, hints at some of what I really plan to do with this. Because as I'm telling you, as I'm telling Tron, like, I don't know exactly why, but this feels very cathartic. I'm just going with it right now. I haven't come up with these ideas for this game, for this universe. This isn't something I sat and wrote down when I was in middle school or along the years. Like, oh, if I ever get into something, I can't wait. All of this is just coming out right now, And so the Grasslands planet, is it all right that I briefly get into this now?
Yes, I think also just to make it clear to everyone, in addition to your beautiful drawing, or also very super creative, which will be up on the screen for this episode. The writing, like, just to make it clear in case it wasn't, the main passion is music and producing. Is that right?
Yes, it's something I don't want to, or maybe I'm like shy to bring up too much right now, because I still have yet to talk to Matt about the possibility. Like, I have an overture that I think people are going to love. And again, it's not something I'd written before. It is just for this game. And I've been grinding it out, working. I was up till 1 a.m. last night, beat, bop, boop, plugging it in. And I really think it's something, when you hear it, it's like, yes, the Starship is deploying, but I want to present it to him. I want to see what he thinks. And hopefully that gives me the opportunity to write more music for Deploy Starship.
Yes. I also just love, I just want to reiterate that, especially as you kind of had a little bit, I don't know, I kind of sensed a little moment of seeking permission almost, or wait until I talk to Matt. But I just want to reiterate what you said just now, which was your voice matters, which is just perfectly said. And yeah, another thing that just resonates with me, but I want to just reflect that back to you as you kind of, just to encourage you to not to minimize anything, not to minimize your beautiful music that I am just so excited to hear more about. Before we get into Grasslands, because Matthew is here, let me just admit him.
I love it.
Cool.
Yeah, sorry I'm late.
No worries.
Morning, Matt.
Okay, so Shooty, you had already talked a bit about your background and how that has, just how the story has been really kind of almost channeling out of you. So could you give us some more specifics about the Grassland planet?
Yes, I would love to. So originally, when you asked the team, everybody kind of pick a planet or pick 2 planets. We want to flesh this out, at least preliminarily. It seems obvious. I would want to, as anybody, I would want to pick. I want to do crystal. I want to do metallic. I want to do magma. But for some reason, the most common planet in the whole system, Grasslands. I'm like that. That's where I want to start. I do meditative float tanks, sensory deprivation tanks, and so I'm sitting in there the day before Melanie, your and I our phone call, and I'm sitting in this tank floating. And normally you're able to come to your thoughts, stop thinking about things or whatever, but all these ideas just flooding in. And I'm like, can't wait to get out of the tank so I can write some of this down. The Grasslands, I had this idea of wind, dominant elemental force. Every planet, we have glacier, we have magma, Grasslands, wind. That this soft, gentle wind, or sometimes not so gentle, is constantly blowing on this planet. And the idea of what if the Kyanite is enhanced a little bit differently for each different planet type. So for the Grasslands, wind or breath kind of being a dominant force, what if the voice, the ability to communicate, this 5th chakra kind of connection, is sort of a dominant force on the planet, that whatever the apex race is, or races, on this planet, their ability to communicate over long distances is a strength of theirs. And so what would happen? What would evolve in a culture like that? The concept of truth, of dialogue, of conversation, this would be an overwhelmingly more peaceful kind of culture, because essentially the only reason any of us, the reason we move and escalate into greater and greater violence and conflict is when we're not able to communicate, to find out what the other person is thinking, what the other, and sort of find that middle ground. And so this culture, just like an easy flowing breeze, when things are coming up, when tensions are arising, it is also dispersed and taken care of kind of as it happens. But even further than that, what if this race or this, however we describe it, their voice is actually their weapon, their primal, like what makes them the apex. And so I started having this idea of, that their throats, they don't have to be human. They don't even have to be humanoid. I was thinking of something kind of mammalian, like a cross between feline and rodent, but more like a tiger and a marsupial rather than like a house cat and a field mouse. But so something strong and hunter-like. But what if their throats had been evolved so that, they have this blow dart? And I don't want to get too, I mentioned this in our conversation, Melanie. I don't want to get too like pinning down a culture that is retroactively not okay to misrepresent, the sensitivity as we move into the year 2022. And I don't want to be trying to depict, a culture and then have people that actually relate and identify, are like, that's really offensive, so I don't mean anything with regards to that. But, what if this culture, sort of a blow dart weapon, is one of their like big tribal things passed down through grandfathers, because of course their voice, the structure of their throat, gives them an ability to have a sonic projectile that when they use this blow dart, people with big, thick throats and low voices can project like a softball size or a tennis ball size projectile and take down big things like tanks. And then people with sort of a long, narrow neck have more like sniper and like quick, fast moving darts, that kind of thing. And it expanded a little bit. Like, so what if we have this hunter tribe that is peaceful, nomadic, perhaps on the plains, but then different biomes within the grasslands planet. I wanted to make resources essentially scarce, so that there's less conflict on the planet. That it's not one area has the gold, one area has the mountains and the ability to be defensive, but it's all kind of just soft and flowing. So there's some rivers everywhere. There's some lakes everywhere. So nobody has too much fish or too much land, for cultivating bison or whatever we have. Yeah, the different biomes, the different dominant races. So what if there's a river race and these are more boatmen? And so they have a strength in commerce. So, if we're getting into like NFT and game design, what if you have a grasslands planet and then we do an airdrop of NFT cards or something, and I don't mean to step into, territory that's already been developed or already has ideas, but, we have an NFT card. If you own a grassland planet, you're randomly dropped one of these biomes, river or lake or hills or plains, or forest, denser forest, that is sort of a dominant race on that planet. And they have a special ability. Like if you pull the river race, these boatmen, they're not half tiger, half marsupial. They're more like half otter, half something. And so they have a strength in commerce. Or the mountain or the hill people have sort of more of a strength in attack or attack and defense. And so what if like each grassland planet, there's sort of a dominant, like this is mostly lakes, but this is still a grassland planet. And this is mostly rivers and boats and log, kind of thing. Or this is like, forests and dense, kind of, people who have an affinity for nighttime and hunting and stealth. And so it lays the groundwork for just kind of the generic spread of cultures and abilities that you might find within a game that are sort of on the more peaceful side. Like this is where characters come to like, just relax. We can trust that this planet is neutral, good. As long as we respect the people that we're landing on the planet with, there's an easy sort of commerce. And so within Grasslands, it sets sort of the stage for these kind of common places. When you play a JRPG, it's usually like you start in your city that incites the plot, everything, and then, specifically in like Final Fantasy games, the very second place you go to, it's a very peaceful village. It's idyllic. It's, this is what things could be like if there was no war, or this is what it feels like when this very peaceful village, the fringes of war are starting to reach their own borders, but still untouched by all of that. And so this could set the stage for that kind of place for people, or for, our characters, our heroes' journeys.
Yes.
I like that NFT idea. And, what if just like with the ships in the game, where you can equip gear, each planet that you own, you can equip these different biomes that you're talking about, which, either enhance your attack, or, your foraging, your mining rates. I think that would be awesome.
And I think it lends itself to, like you have with some of our characters, there's an idea that the cards, you can tap it, like Magic the Gathering. I grew up playing the hell out of that game, loved it.
Yeah.
And so you tap your hero to give you an ability, like we've just sort of picked at and describing, like once in a 24-hour cycle, you double your Kyanite revenue, or you're like, you tap this and you're able to negate the consumption fees of your ship. So these are already like very practical ideas. What if your planets gave you an ability like that was lesser than that? So if you've got a card for this boatman or this commerce, then you tap it one time for one trip, not for a whole day, but for one trip, that you are able to add another ship of your fleet at no extra cost. You're able to add the Kyanite mining value for one trip, or somehow these little NFTs from the planets you gather, or the race cards that you're pulling, they're sort of a secondary or tertiary kind of like short-term bonus that could, and again, I don't mean to impose on like the Kyanite pool. I don't want it to drain us to zero, within 2 weeks after the game starts. I'm just thinking game lore idea right now.
Yeah. No, I love those ideas, and I wouldn't worry about the Kyanite pool. I think on Tuesday when Timur shows the other game, we're not going to have any concerns there. So
Good.
I definitely got a lot of inspiration from Magic the Gathering as well. So there's that.
And that's what I love. I always played a blue deck. So when I'm describing lore for the ocean planet, this was a lot of like a mermaid culture. And I want to, in my kind of planning of it, I kind of want to avoid that because it's been done, especially recently with Aquaman. And, like mermaid culture is like, okay, we've got that. Let's try something new, but certainly I remember my favorite card, my big boy in my deck, was Leviathan. And it had this drawing of a giant Leviathan. And as I'm picturing the ocean planet, what if there was just this massive sea turtle, that a kingdom was built on the back of this sea turtle, and that's a very common theme through lots of different cultures, is the living on the back of a giant turtle thing. But what if it was in the ocean?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I think I saw something like that. TCG World, there was a giant turtle image, and there was trees growing at the top of the turtle, and it's like walking around. But yeah, I think you're onto something with that.
Oh man, everyone's got laser eyes for TCG right now. Not to talk about other projects. But.
I definitely like what you're saying though about not wanting to tread over the ground that's been done a billion times. That's why I'm trying to find more characters that are like not bipedal, basically. So it doesn't just look like a knockoff of He-Man, where everything is just a person, but maybe like with blue skin or something. Like more diversity in like the types and the types of creatures, things of that nature.
And I also I wanted to make sure with Lord Albright, like his dominant trait, like +2 to leadership, like that's been done. Like obviously he's the leader, he's got more leadership, charisma, but so that's what kind of led me to explore a little deeper, like what could be a fantastical ability, the ability to just attract who and what you need in the moment is almost superhuman, like Domino from Deadpool, that things just kind of work out. And that could be really fun to play with.
I had some ideas on, Lord Albright, but, I would need someone like you guys who are super creative to implement it. But when we accept like who we are and we are our true self, that's when we see the most growth, whether that's, in our relationships, life, business, whatever. So I thought maybe, like maybe the coalition, maybe in the beginning, Lord Albright follows all the rules and he does all the things he's supposed to do, even if they're not, even if they don't totally resonate with himself. And maybe something happens where he just says, you know what, I'm doing it my way. I know this is right. This feels right with me. This feels right with the universe. And, once he operates this way, the universe, even though he may already be emperor, the universe accepts him as emperor. And then this Kyanite glow from his eyes happens and these crowns, Kyanite crowns grow from his head or something, but the messaging there, is that I want people to see that, whether society tells you you're supposed to operate this way or that way, when you start being true to yourself, that's when the universe accepts you, and that's when you're gonna be successful. So.
Yes,
I definitely pictured rescuing Faye as being the first step in that sort of process, right? Like it's the first time, it's like him taking his first step, like on his true path to go against the council on behalf of Faye, sort of, even regardless of whether or not we have her fall from grace be like a real thing or not a real thing, he still says, well, I don't care. We don't leave people to die.
Yes. I just love that. I feel like that it is about, just as we kind of, I don't know, we turn 18 and we're told we're adults, but it's actually like a huge learning curve to come into your own as a person. Just like what you said, Matt, about as soon as you kind of step into who you are, the universe will see that and recognize it, and it's just like life flows, and I think that's like a huge message to get out, and it's going to be super fun to see it as like a rebellion of what the authority is saying and then what to be true. So it's like seeing that play out, as Tron was saying about like Lord Albright going to rescue Faye, because he knows it's what is the right thing to do, and kind of like forget all the noise, all the whatever it is. The data says it's not a wise mission to undertake. Whatever, like I'm doing it basically. So I think that's such a fun thing to get to explore.
And I have a bit of a thought to go with that. That it opens up a simple storytelling, like a vignette, flashbacks, to kind of support the moment. So I'm not, like I said, I try not to pull too much from any one thing that's already been done. But imagining, Brie Larson and Captain Marvel, you have these flashbacks of, Private Albright or First Officer Albright, kind of being told what to do in basic training setting or an early career kind of setting. And he recognizes, from his point of view, he recognizes the weakness of that person who's giving him an order. He's like, no, that's not the right thing. We need to do this. And like sort of cuts, flashbacks of moments in his like upbringing where he's like, no, I know the answer. I just, if somebody would let me talk, if some, or it's just not the right moment, and then suddenly like, boom, here's the moment. Like Matt, like you just said, glowing crown, I take on the mantle. And this is like, I think this is an incredibly like, why is Lord Albright get to be the center of the story? Because in a kind of a meta sense, that's what we're doing a little bit with crypto, with this concept of Bitcoin. It's like, no. We need to take the reins and make our own destiny. Like we each have a voice. We know what to do with our money. We know how to spend it, where we want it to go, and the ideas that we want to put into manifestation because of that. Like, and so the rebellious nature of even playing crypto games and believing that it can be a future for you sort of ties into why you would play this game specifically.
Yes.
I love it.
You can't see me, but I'm nodding vigorously the whole time you're talking.
Yes. Well, Shooty, I know that it's about time. So is there any message, anything that you'd like to close out your episode with?
Yeah. So I, when I first, when you get into like, okay, I have my first $100 or my first $1,000, maybe if you're a little more stable in your life, like, and I want to start investing into a crypto thing, and you research and you say, okay, what's not a scam? What's not a rug pull? You look behind the team and you see the community, like, okay, there's a good Discord that's been going on, right? So the point of me saying that is, when you start looking into the team of a game, you think, okay, what's the CEO, and how are they planning to make money? How can I invest myself to make money off of this? And, to a point, that is a certain bit of like, that's the point right now. But crypto gaming is taking something on a new path, and why it can decouple from, all of this. It gets me into thinking about, if I only knew the team, the creative team behind the game, the people that are working to make lore and art and that, I would have invested twice as much. I would have invested so there's a lot happening with this game behind the scenes that, I would not financial advice, right? Like, I would go all in because of some of the exciting potential that is in this StarShip universe. And I appreciate being able to see that deeper level and get excited about meeting you and Tron, and understanding like this kindred spirit, this like, here's an opportunity. Because with developing planets, in a sense, part of what we're doing is allowing people to explore their favorite tropes. I want somewhere that allows me to be peaceful and just kind of focus on the fundamentals. Grasslands. I am a person who likes hard rock and like, I love the fighting urukai and like forges and like Borderlands cannibals, like Magma Planet. I love, and I had an idea for the ocean planet, not to like do it just to be socio-political, but what if in the ocean planet, reproduction is asexual? So it ties into the element of water and transformation and fluidity. Like, what if there's sort of an ambiguity to people's identity on ocean planets? And again, that's coming from what if for fun, this, not how can I impose LGBTQ on StarShip Universe, because I don't intend to do that at all. But each of the planets can help deal with a part of a human's makeup, a part of our psyche. And so naturally that will help people gravitate to what they really like, not just crystal planets make me the most money, let's all spend time being crystal heroes. But like, I am a paradise person, or, that kind of thing.
Totally. Like, what can they explore about myself? Like, what can I explore about what I'm thinking about right now, but kind of also expand on that, and take it beyond like what's possible in this realm, basically.
And I think this kind of goes back to what I said in the first episode, where, I want my character to embrace both good and bad. And what is good and what is bad. I mean, that's all, in the eye of the beholder, I guess. But the point is, I want to embrace everything, whether that's LGBTQ or some crazy racist with a pitchfork and a light or whatever, or lantern. I want those to be on full display within the story. I don't want to write them out of the story and say, oh, these things, we'll just ignore them, they don't exist. I don't think that's fair, and that's not something that we should allow, because we have the opportunity to show people the different ways that we can deal with things, positive and negative, for entertainment purposes, and to help cultivate a society that is hopefully moving in a positive direction. So I want a little bit of everything, but I always want to embrace everything, good and bad.
Yeah, I really love that. Like, from an artistic standpoint, we want something that is modern without just trying to be the next thing, but it has to be rooted in what this culture right now, like, for example, a Marvel movie made 15 years ago has different cultural messages, because over the 15 years, we have already become something, or things we're working on. Again, to reference Captain Marvel, like, the topical timing of why that movie was so popular at that time was very intentional, and if we just make some fantasy race that has to do, or world that has to do with tropes of human behavior from what we want it to be like in medieval times, then that kind of gets boring really quickly. But the opportunity we have here to create a universe that is very encompassing of what it means to be human now, what are things we care about, and again, not to be too specific, too topical, but just the general zeitgeist of what people care about now. Like you said, let's let everybody have a place here.
I want to make sure that we don't misrepresent people, whether it's, and I don't want to get political, but we just lived through tough political times, and you have one side misrepresenting the other side, and it goes back and forth. If we're representing something, let's properly represent that person how they envision themselves, not how we envision them. Not giving someone a voice, that is where the frustration leads to violence. So I don't want to do this in a way where people aren't heard, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I absolutely do. Like, personally, my background with yoga and massage, this is very compassionate kind of work. And so understanding how to write about humans, how to, just like you said, how to represent humans the way that they want to be heard. They, and I am certainly not trying to interject any specific details that are like, oh, this is on the nose, this is who I'm really talking about. I do want to stay away from that. But certainly, like you said, coming at the lore creation and the artistic creation from a place of compassion and like pure empathy allows me to write people or create a world how they want to be viewed, instead of just what Shooty thinks in his little writing desk, what Shooty's opinion is about how all these people are and who should behave. So to strengthen people's, understanding of what's going on behind the scenes, I think just in talking to you, I think we all have that kind of compassionate ear in our creation.
Yeah, and the interest to explore the human condition and like differences.
Right, not to make a point, but just to represent.
Yes, from like an authentic, curious, open place that's really fully dimensional rather than reductionist,
100%. You'll rarely find any side in the world that's like capital E evil.
Totally. Well, thank you so much, Shooty, for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I just can't tell you enough how contagious your enthusiasm is. So thank you so much for joining us here today and for joining us in the writer's room proper.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. For now, if anybody is like needing to speak to me directly, please just put it in the lore email. I encourage anybody, we have a universe to create, and there's room for everybody. So if you have an idea, just one little, like a crab with a gold shell and his name is Trusty, and I thought it might be fun to put him in this planet, all these little ideas. Your voice is necessary. Your voice is valid. And so even if it's just one little snippet of, I had this half-formed thought about, what if there's a person on this type of planet who behaves like this, a specific character or a whole race, or like what kyanite could be used for, or just a weapon, a doodle, submit it in the lore chat. And if you've got anything to say to me directly like that, just for now, you can write it in there, and we'll kind of filter through and catch that for sure. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys more. And I love the collaboration and the energy that we have going back and forth to really create something, sort of like nobody's in charge, like Matt's in charge, but nobody's saying, if it can't be this way, I don't want to even do this.
Yeah.
I haven't even caught a small whiff of any of that. And I really love that coming into this project. And so I look forward to talking with all of you again very soon.
Yes, thank you so much.
Shooty,
good to have you on board.
Thank you.
Shooty, I love everything you have to say, and I think that we should, make you a regular on this show. I don't know what Melanie and Tron think, but I think
Matt,
it would be a great idea.
I would love
100%.
to. And this week, I'm fleshing out the ocean world. It's time. I'm very excited about that too.
Oh, stay tuned, everyone. It's gonna be good.
Yeah. I'll get a drawing together too, for sure.
Oh, that sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you again. I'm out.
Oh, I could talk to him forever.
Great writer to have on board.
Yes. So we're coming to the end, and we do have some community shout outs before we wrap up. We just wanted to say thank you to the community members who pointed out that the way that we were abbreviating Spazzitron's name in the last episode could be seen as offensive. So thank you so much. We are taking that on board, and we are calling Spazzitron by his full name or by the abbreviation Tron. We also have community members who have already submitted suggestions to the lore inbox. Thank you guys so much for this. It was really fun reading your work. So we have Tugabuddy, who suggested that we implement a mystery arc into the lore and the game so that the community would be following clues and they'd receive NFTs as they figure out the mystery. It also had a really sweet message, which was a lot of people out there are building communities around projects, but StarShip is the only project I know that is building a project around a community. So thank you so much for that really nice comment. We also have Major Hassel, who submitted a scene of a character who was recovering scraps from a ship that crashed on a magma planet. And they said they actually created the scene before the lore was even announced, because while they were playing the game, their imagination was just lighting up to create the reasons or the circumstances in which you might find NFTs on the different planets. So Matt, I think that was really a good testament that your ambition of sparking people's inspiration is definitely already working.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, anything we can do to get anything we can do to get the community to engage, spark their imaginations, their creativity, I think is positive, especially with, these are tough times, and different people have different lives. A lot of people have stressful lives, and I want this to be an escape for people. I think that if we can accomplish that one goal, then StarShip will be a success. So.
Totally. Yeah. And finally, we have Kiwi Down Under, who submitted a story with some background on how and why the humans of StarShip left planet Earth. In the story, there's an overpopulation crisis, which leads to a lack of resources. There's also a new technology that allows humans to digitize themselves and essentially live forever, but it requires more energy than they have. So I'll read an excerpt from the story on how this was overcome. Kyanite turned out to be the savior of the human species. Not only did it function 1,000% more efficiently than even crystal technology, but it was found throughout the universe in all planets and all solar systems, the easiest of which to mine were pockets of kyanite buildup, much like ley lines found on Earth. The natural building blocks of carbon at subquark level were fueled by kyanite, it turned out. Just one kyanite subquark could fuel 200 years of cell life. Thank you so much, Kiwi Down Under, and all of our other community members who submitted. If you would like to submit your suggestions or drawings or other ideas, just send us an email to lore@deploystarship.com. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the StarShip Writers Room. If you have an idea for the StarShip lore, we would love to hear it, and you might even get a shout out on the pod. Simply send it to lore@deploystarship.com. That's LORE@deploystarship.com. We hope you have a stellar day, and we'll see you next week.